Representatives Meredith Craig and Kellie Deeter. Welcome to Message from the House.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you very much for having us. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is both of your first terms. I'm excited to learn a little bit about both of you and your districts and, why you're passionate about the topic that we'll be discussing today, which is rural health care. Representative Deeter, if you want to kick things off, tell me about yourself.
Thank you. Yes, my first term in the Ohio House. I represent the 54th District, so almost all of Huron County and about half geographically of Lorain County. My background is in healthcare, so I am a nurse anesthetist and a nurse practitioner. I own an anesthesia company that services hospitals and surgery centers in the district with anesthesia personnel, and I also provide anesthesia at those facilities as well. So been doing that for 30 years, and prior to my running, I actually did a lot of advocacy in the healthcare space, just kind of addressing barriers to care in my rural district. So saw the opportunity for my chance to throw my hat in the ring and serve, and I took it, and here we are today.
That's awesome. Glad you're here. And Representative Craig, you as well. Tell me about yourself and your district.
Yes. So again, Meredith Craig, serving in my first term here. So represent all of Wayne County. So it's Ohio House District 77, one of the two single county districts left, which I'm very grateful for. But my county, we are one of the top agricultural industries across the state. So we're a little unique. We have the most CAUV land, which is agricultural land. But then we're also top in manufacturing as well. So we've got a little bit of mix of both. And then our second largest employer is our independent hospital system, Worcester Community Hospital. So, another big reason why focusing in on the rural hospital caucus. But, my county is unique, but also it's just big on business and overall farm and manufacturing and healthcare. So, my background a little bit. Advocacy to a certain point in the healthcare space, a lot of insurance background, and term limits opened up my seat. And so saw the opportunity, had a lot of folks ask me to run, and here we are.
And you were an aide at one point, correct?
I was.
Legislative aide?
Yes, I served with Ron Amstutz, who served in this district 10 years ago, which is crazy how fast time goes. But yeah, 10 years ago, I served in the same district, just under Ron Amstutz, who was Speaker Pro Tem at the time.
That is incredible. Very nice. Sounds like both districts tackle a couple different buckets of things, right? Which is, makes Ohio unique and our state. Rep Deeter, I'll direct this towards you. This rural healthcare hospital caucus, right? Why did you guys feel the need to establish this during this General Assembly?
That's a really good question. I think both Rep. Craig and I were sort of independently concerned about the viability and sustainability of our local hospitals. My district in particular relies heavily on rural healthcare. We have 3 facilities, one that's completely independent and 2 that are critical access but part of a larger health system. Either way, we're fully reliant on rural healthcare, so just concerned about the future of those facilities with decreasing margins, increasing Medicaid population, where you have higher Medicaid reliance but lower Medicaid spend. You have a healthcare cliff that we are heading towards. So we just wanted to open up the conversations, to see what policies that maybe we should tackle. Simultaneously, the One Big Beautiful Bill happened, which I'm sure we'll discuss. And so it was just very timely that we decided to tackle this, and we just kind of decided naturally to do it together. So.
Rep. Craig, do you have anything to add?
No, she did a great job.
Yeah, I will ask you, how has the House been responding to this? Have your colleagues jumped on board? I know Speaker Huffman is also a proponent of this issue in supporting rural health care. How's that been?
Yeah, I think we have a good array of folks that sit on our rural hospital caucus. We have members on both sides, so it's also bipartisan, which is nice. Again, we all bring different expertise, different backgrounds, different experiences. And so I think we are uniquely positioned to kind of lead the nation in this topic. So I think it's great that we formed this caucus. I think we've got great leadership to be able to actually tackle some of these really tough issues. So I'm excited about the direction we're going.
I will start here in the state before we go federal. The Ohio Hospital Tax Pilot Program was recently created under the state's budget. Either of you can tackle this for me, or if both want to chime in. What exactly is this? What does it do?
So that was a budget amendment here in House Bill 96 that passed recently. It's essentially giving actually 10 very specific rural counties the ability to draw down more federal funds to basically, be able to reach their healthcare initiatives and pay for their services and address their growing Medicaid population.
Nice. Representative Craig?
Yeah, I think it is very focused and very narrow to these 10 specific counties. So, my county was not included. I don't believe Rep. Deeter's county was included. So kind of another, at least in my, opinion, another big reason to try and focus in on this area is I think you still, outside of that program, left a lot of rural Ohio out. And so we need to be thinking long-term on solutions that are going to make sense for the entire state, not just a select few winners.
No, it's important to point that out. And I think, federally, there are some ideas being tossed around too. And it's good to have the caucus so you guys can continue the conversation, right? The big, beautiful bill as it stands would help to fund rural health care. Where are we in determining how Ohio will be impacted by that?
Sure. Yeah. I think right now, we are gathering as much information as we possibly can. So the governor's office is leading the entire application. So Representative Deeter and I have been in constant communication with them to make sure that, their priorities and the information they're receiving is in alignment with what we're receiving as well. So applications are due November 5th. So it is a very tight turnaround. And I guess I should back up. So there's $50 billion authorized in this entire rural health fund. Half of that is equally distributed to every state. So it does not matter upon population. In terms of rural population versus urban, every state will receive the same amount, and that'll be equally distributed for the next 5 years. The other half, so the remaining $25 billion, states have to apply in order to receive that. And so that is currently what we are underway with, trying to form the best application we can as a state to be able to get as many dollars back here as we possibly can. And then once we do receive dollars, CMS and, the Trump administration, Congress, they are looking for certain outcomes in order to continue allocating dollars moving forward. So this will be a gradual process over the next 5 years. And so we as a state, we will have to execute on what we will say we will execute on in our application, right? Managing chronic disease, keeping these services rural instead of referring them to urban areas, making sure that we're looking at, technology to be able to manage both disease, but also handle billing, reimbursement, all of that. So there are several things that we all need to be looking to tackle, and then continue to execute on that in order to receive as much funds as we can. And then the awardees will be, like I said, it's a tight timeline. Applications due November 5th. Awardees will be notified by the end of this year, by December 31st.
That application process, is that for the state?
Yes.
Okay. So the state is the one. Okay.
Yeah. So it'll all be ran through the governor's office.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Wow. That is a tight turnaround with it now being October. I think that segues nicely into legislation that you all are working on, in addition to trying to get these dollars to funnel out to our rural healthcare system, but, making sure that we are making progress in those areas as well. Any legislation that you want to talk about in this sector so far, things you're working on?
I mostly work on healthcare legislation, so that really predates the Rural Caucus and One Big Beautiful Bill, just because, again, I sort of identified this viability and sustainability issue long before this conversation started. And, the impetus for me being here was barriers to practicing in rural health. So those really are what I came to address, and have several bills mostly regarding scope of practice issues. We're a very incremental state as it relates to scope of practice. So I really don't think it doesn't make sense, right, for us to have barriers and not recognize scopes of practice that folks are trained, educated, nationally certified to practice. And in a healthcare access and cost crisis, those two things just don't go together. So these are basic reforms that really can only benefit the state. So working on a lot of those pieces, but additionally, since we started the Rural Caucus, just the 3 meetings that we've had thus far, have been very informative, hearing from our local hospital CEOs as to what state policies can be beneficial to them, that would go beyond this transformation fund. So one that came up is timeliness of our Medicaid and commercial payers to credential the providers when they apply to be a provider. The facility credentials these folks as well as the payers. So the payer credentialing can sometimes last up to 6 months. So these folks come ready to work. They have a start date. So you have a surgeon, for example, and he or she cannot start on that day because they're not credentialed with the payers. So the facility has to pick that up then, for the subsequent months that they're waiting for those payer contracts to be negotiated. And we feel like that should be a pretty short and succinct timeline as compared to the current system. So that's one thing that we plan to address. But overall, just in network adequacy, is something that we could have better standards for in the state of Ohio. And I do have a bill for that as well. But I'll let Rep. Craig kind of add to some of this conversation.
Yeah, I think, again, as I said earlier, we all bring different backgrounds. So Representative Deeter's background is actually being a provider. My background is on the health insurance side. And so a lot of what I'm working on is focused on making sure we have access to good quality health insurance, making sure that government is staying out of the way and not driving up those costs, but streamlining it, making it more accessible, working on what is called an ICHRA tax credit, individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, something the first Trump administration offered. So, for small businesses who typically already don't offer health insurance, so that 2 to 50 employee range, the state of Ohio will offer a non-refundable tax credit up to $400 if they are to contribute into a health reimbursement arrangement for their employees to get enrolled on the individual exchange. So Congress they just introduced 2 bills to offer a federal tax credit for an ICHRA as well. And so I think generally there is momentum to, again, encourage employers to get more involved in offering health insurance, incentivizing them, especially as we see all these Medicaid work requirements coming. We led, the state of Ohio led in that. Obviously, that was also part of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so just having a plan to make sure folks have coverage so they're not showing up to our rural hospitals uninsured, which again leaves another burden on them. So that's kind of my focus area. There's a lot going on, though, as Rep. Deeter said, and again, kind of relying on each other to work on what we know.
It definitely sounds like you are not waiting for the federal help. You're trying to tackle the issue that you can in the state, which is really nice. And I know that folks in those areas appreciate it. I want to segue then into the stall that we potentially could see or are seeing in Congress with negotiations with the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act. Somehow the Rural Health Fund is being roped into that. Do you want to talk me through what could potentially happen or what you're hearing?
Sure. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought this up. So we have found out over the last couple of days as Congress has been debating what to include in their budget. They call it the CR, the Continuing Resolution. And it has come to our knowledge that the Rural Health Fund is being leveraged as a political bargaining chip. So there is conversation that instead of including this Rural Health Fund, we should just include $1.5 trillion into the Medicaid program as a whole to serve illegal immigrants and able-bodied working adults. So again, seems a little confusing given that we are trying to embolden and empower our, rural hospitals, our rural providers to be able to innovate and address, their local communities. And so taking away resources from them just to write a blank check elsewhere just seems kind of contradictory. So we did issue a statement. We sent out a letter. We had the majority of our caucus members sign on to that, which was great. We did send that to our Ohio delegation just this morning. And so as conversations continue, hopefully, this rural health fund will not be used in any way as a bargaining chip. Because like I said, we're already fully underway with trying to develop our application, and, to just immediately sidestep that and, eliminate all of that altogether just seems, irresponsible in my opinion.
Representative Deeter, what was your reaction to that news?
Really the same as Representative Craig's. I mean, that fund, while it sounds like a lot of money, that's going to go really fast. I mean, to clarify, it's not just going to rural facilities, it's going to rural health care altogether. So that goes far beyond just the facilities that, we're trying to help with the hospital caucus. It's, focused broadly on rural health care as a whole. So that money is going to go really quickly. And I do think it's a necessary piece for us to be able to remain viable and transition to the changes that came down with the One Big Beautiful Bill. So it can't go away at this point. Yeah. So I'd really hate to see that happen.
Absolutely. We'll definitely monitor that, of course, in the next couple weeks, hopefully an answer sooner than that. I will ask before we wrap up, where do you see the caucus going, the Rural Healthcare Caucus? Do you guys have meetings set up in the future? Are you having different folks from the outside world come in and, present or talk, or is this member-wide? Talk me through your goal of the caucus.
Yeah, we have a meeting next week, right? Mm-hmm. So this will be our
fourth.
Mm-hmm. And you have a running list, I think, of people that want to come and speak. So we do have a waiting list. We're trying to get through that. But I think the big focus right now has been focusing on the One Big Beautiful Bill and this Rural Health Fund to try and make sure that, our members are equipped with understanding the nuances of it, what we're trying to do. But yeah, I think overall we'll start to get more involved in policy. But for now, and between now and the end of this application process, we're kind of focused on making sure we're equipped to be the best state to apply for these funds.
Yeah, I think we've given a platform to a lot of people who wanted to have a voice and didn't necessarily have that, and they contact our office weekly, and I think we're both kind of surprised at the interest in the caucus itself. Ohio Hospital Association is coming next week to present. They're certainly our partners in all things healthcare, and we're happy to hear from them as well as anyone else. The meetings are closed though, so that not just anyone can show up. So, but yeah, it's exciting, and I can't wait to kind of focus on the policy aspect once this big transformation fund gets settled.
Yeah. Congratulations to you both. Lots of momentum in that space. And it's been, 9 months of you being in the legislature? 8? Maybe?
9?
Technically, we're in the 10th month, right? It's October. It is October. That's crazy.
That is wild. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And I can't wait to see it continue to grow. I will quickly shout out our social media pages for folks to follow. You can follow us on the Ohio House GOP Caucus on Facebook, Ohio House _GOP on Instagram, and OHR GOP Caucus on Twitter. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Representative Kellie Deeter and Representative Meredith Craig, thank you so much for coming on Message from the House.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you again.